In part two of our three-part Q&A with Chief of Police Jerry Williams, we are talking about the challenges that motivated change over her past 5 years. There are voices in the community that say that since you became Chief of Police here at the Phoenix Police Department, there have been a number of high-profile investigations concluding that there is a culture of racism and corruption and use of excessive force here. What do you say to that?
I say to that, when I hear that, it's unacceptable, it's disappointing, it's discouraging, it's not in keeping with what a law enforcement agency is to provide for its community. At the same time, there have been examples that what they are saying or what these voices are giving to us has been accurate. And when we have all the information, everything that we have and need for the investigation, we do take action. When it comes to providing the best possible service and the best possible light to our members of our community who deserve that, we've made some of the difficult choices to terminate the employment of individuals. So we have to always get better. I understand that, but I also understand and know that I have to own the wrongs of the Phoenix Police Department in order to make sure the community believes that we will do something about it when it's brought to our attention.
Chief, specifically looking at 2018, when we saw that high number of officer-involved shootings, you brought the National Police Foundation in to conduct a study and offer recommendations. Once you had that study back, what did you do with that information?
So we really took a good hard look at the information that they presented in the study, and we were able to make our way through a number of recommendations that they made. Pointing guns at people and documenting that was critical. Moving forward with meaningful community engagement was one of the things that they mentioned too. So we now have community members helping us through policy. So the foot pursuit policy, chasing or stepping in front of moving vehicles policy are things that the community helped us with. They also wanted to make sure that we increased transparency so that community members could have access to our officer-involved shooting data. So we've done that also. We're still working our way through more community engagement. It has been recommended to us too to have community members sit on our hiring panels. So you're a community member and you want to know if Jerry Williams comes to your house, I want to feel comfortable as a community member having Jerry Williams come to my house. So we've added community members on our hiring panel and we'll add community members on our promotional panels too. But really drilling down to the pointing guns at people, information data sharing, meaningful community engagement were critical issues for us in that study.
Aside from the changes that came out of that National Police Foundation study, you've made some other big changes over your nearly 5 years. Talk to me about some that stand out for you.
So some that stand out for me are some that the community wanted and really resonated with us in 2020. So the duty to intervene post-critical incident was critical for us. Having a foot pursuit policy was critical for us. Duty provide medical aid was critical for us. Duty for you to stand in the middle of your fellow partner officer doing something wrong and you know it's wrong with a community member, you having to step into that gap and take that has been something that's been a focus as well. We also want to make sure that we're learning from our mistakes, and I'm going to say it that way. So if there is a questionable shooting, we should immediately train and find out what went wrong, what happened, what needs to change, and then begin the process of training our employees to get better at that. Continuous improvement has always been something that's been a number one topic for me. And in 2020, we developed what's called the Center for Continuous Improvement, where I have a group of people who are looking forward to policies and procedures that are working and working well in other places that we may not have, and then implementing those policies, procedures, trainings, and practices so that we're this constantly ever evolving, ever learning, critically looking at ourselves. I think that's critical too. And I don't need voices to tell me that. As a leader, that's my responsibility and that's my job. So when we talk about progressive policing, we talk about community-based policing, we talk about transparency and all those words that's been used, you really need to show tangible effects of that. One of the things that we were successful in getting done finally too is being fully compliant in 8 Can't Wait. So Campaign Zero has this pledge of 8 different things that they want police agencies to do in their policies, procedures, and practices. And we were able to get through that in 2020 in spite of everything that was going on, not just in Phoenix, not just in the country, but throughout the world.
We've already talked about mental health externally in the community, but talk to me about the changes you've made for mental health internally for your employees.
So it's been a focus since day one, realizing all the things that the officers view and go through, the communications dispatchers, our forensic imaging unit. If you mention our crime lab techs, to be honest, I made it a focus of mine to make sure we increased our employee assistance unit twofold. So it's now double the size it was before I got back. And the employee assistance unit are the group of folks who kind of help our people through mental health crises. They are also the people who help families of our fallen officers make their way through the challenging system of trying to move forward. It's critical, though, too, to have an officer who's mentally, spiritually, and emotionally focused in order to be able to do the best job possible. So we do require mandatory mental health check-ins for those highly traumatized assignments, and those could be the Family Investigations Bureau, the Homicide Unit, the SWAT team, the Forensic Imaging Unit. Those are our employees who have to view the body-worn camera video, our communications dispatchers, as well as our crime lab techs, just to make sure that they are the best person that they can be when they go out and they interact with members of our public.
Despite all these changes we just talked about, we are still dealing with questions about what type of department you run. I would be remiss if I did not ask about the most recent high-profile investigations, the Challenge Coin, the arrest of demonstrators. What do you say about those incidents?
So those are unfortunate instances that create opportunities for the community members that we serve to distrust us. So let's just own it and let's just say it. When presented with all the facts, all the information, and all the circumstances, once we have that, we'll be able to take action. Those voices have been heard so clearly that I've heard them, city management has heard them, mayor and council have heard them, to the point that they are approving and have allowed us to bring in a couple of different outside entities. Because I have to own the fact that there are members of the community that don't trust police to investigate police, we've brought in Ballard & Spahr as the outside law firm to look into the Challenge Coin matter. We've brought in 21CP to look specifically at the protests. What are our communications? What are the training? What are the tactics? What could we do better to give us blueprints of how to get better? Once we find out more information on the investigations, then we'll be able to take action. At the end of the day, very painful process to go through, but very necessary in order to become the police department that all members of our community can trust and believe in.
Coming up in part 3 of our Q&A with the chief, we take a look back at her time here, her priorities around transparency, training, and mental health, and how these priorities have reformed policing in Phoenix.